just kind of see him. Unless if he develops his three, develops a shot, mid-range jumper, he'll be amazing.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Isabel Moreno. I am the interim director for admission and financial aid at the College of Law. So I am the person who either called you or left you a voicemail, or if your voicemail was full, sent you an email, just giving you an update on the status of your application. So congratulations. Thank you so much for being here. I know March in Salt Lake City is always a hit or miss in terms of the weather. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here. We're certainly delighted that you're here to engage with our faculty, learn more about our facilities, and of course our programming. We will have another faculty member here. Just the weather has created some unexpected delays, but he should be here shortly. With that said, I just have a couple of housekeeping matters to address. For those of you who were able to brave the weather and parked out in Bryce Eccles Stadium, parking was reserved for you guys today, but in the event that you are cited, please just contact our office. We'll take care of that citation for you. In addition to that, if you have any questions, I don't know if you can read it, but I hope you do. We'll be using slido.com today, and there is your code. So please field your questions to that so that we can field them when I come back up here for our faculty. And along those lines, know that we do have a career development, clinical, as well as clerkship staff that will be here in the next session. So please reserve those questions for them, especially the ones for career development. We usually get those substantially for the faculty panel, and they will address other issues this morning. With that, I do want to introduce our dean, Robert Adler. He is our 11th dean, and he's also an expert in water law, so that's mostly essentially his areas of expertise, but he's currently teaching environmental law, and so for those of you who have an interest in that area of the law, he is one of the faculty members that is hosting guests in his hosting guests in his class. So we will have those class visits available until April 5th. So without further ado, Dean Robert Adler.
Thank you very much, and welcome. As Ms. Moreno said, I am the 11th Dean of the S.J. Quinney College of Law. As some of you might have read in the newspaper, this is my 6th and final year as Dean, which is good news, I promise you, I'll tell you that. It is my 25th year teaching at the College of Law, and it is not my final year teaching at the college. I am returning to the teaching faculty because I love to teach. And actually, I was teaching environmental law before water law. I practiced environmental law for 15 years before teaching. So I teach a lot of courses in the environmental curriculum. I've also taught civil procedure and administrative law and other basic courses. But we have announced, President Watkins announced Monday morning, our 12th Dean of the College of Law, Elizabeth Cronk-Warner, who is the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at the University of Kansas Law School. Tremendously talented person. She's got great leadership experience. In addition to her Associate Dean experience, she has run a Native American Law Center. She's taught at 3 law schools. I know her because she teaches in my field, and she's tremendously energetic and talented. And so the great news for you is that we will combine all of the wonderful things that we have done for so many years with new ideas from other law schools and another dean, and it will make us even better. And again, I will still be here. So let me begin from your perspective by congratulating you. You're obviously here because we chose you. We have quite high admission standards. We've always had very high admission standards. The number of applicants grew last year, stayed strong this year. So if anything, it was harder to get into this institution the last couple of years than in the years before then. So congratulations. I know that many of you have decisions to make. Many of you have choices or will have choices, and choices can be a little bit stressful. So the point of today is for us to try to help inform your decision. The point of today is for us to try to help give you the information that you need that will be helpful to make a good decision. And we understand that there's a lot of good law schools out there. We understand that there are different factors that might cause you to choose law schools, geography and areas of substantive interest and other factors. We do hope that most or all of you will accept our offer of admission, but fair is fair. We spent a lot of time scrutinizing your applications and your qualifications, and now it's your turn. Right now it's your turn to check us out and to ask questions all day today. But I also want to invite you to ask me questions after you leave. If you think about questions that you haven't had answered, you can email me, you can schedule an appointment on the phone, or stop by. And I think I speak for my colleagues, are happy to continue to answer your questions. So let me give you a few reasons of the many that I think you might find us attractive. And the first is size. We are a small law school. We're, in fact, the smallest law school among the top 50 ranked law schools in the country. We have intentionally been small for our entire history because we like to give an individualized legal education. This is a place where during your first year, in addition to your small legal methods sections with which Professor Anderson will tell you about later, we guarantee one major substantive class in the first or second semesters in which you have a class of 20 or 22 students. Now, when and where I went to law school, we had 4 first-year sections of 125 students each, right? Very different experience in terms of how well you get to know your faculty, the type of personal guidance and mentorship you can get, the opportunities to work with members of the faculty on their research and your own research through directed research. Very, very important factor. And that transcends law school itself through our alumni community. As I said, I've been teaching here for a quarter century. I run into alums all the time who are my friends. You know, so I was in Las Vegas on Monday evening, not to raise money for the law school, I promise you. I was there for an alumni event, and we had about 35 alums from the Nevada area getting together. And I walked into the room, and someone I taught Civ Pro to 23 years ago saw me and said, "I was hoping you would be here." And he came up to me and he gave me a big hug, right? And in addition to, you know, making you feel great as an educator, that people still remember you after 25 years and still even like you after 25 years, it kind of shows the sense of community. Every single alum I spoke to in that room said, you know, how can we help your students get jobs if they want to get jobs in the Las Vegas or Nevada area? We've got alums all over the country who do that sort of thing. So one microcosm of an example, but I think a telling one. The second reason that you might consider coming here is location. And I frequently joke about us having the best snow on earth. I'm not sure it's the best morning or the worst morning to make that joke this morning, but some people love the outdoors. And we do try to emphasize quality of life, and we do try to emphasize work-life balance, meaning that you'll be better students and happier and healthier if you balance your studies with getting outside to do the things you do, or getting downtown to participate in the arts community, or other things, or the sports community, or other things you like to do. So location is multifaceted. One is the beautiful location. A second is that we are ideally located at the corner of a tremendous university campus and community, so that we're part of the campus and the campus community and all that has to offer, but we're right next to tracks. We're 10 minutes from downtown. We can get downtown in 10 minutes by tracks, by car, by bicycle, right, in order to work at the many opportunities that we have being the state capital. So this is actually a very major advantage over some law schools. We've got the federal government agencies, state government, federal courts, state courts, administrative courts, major law firms to smaller boutique law firms, the heart of Utah's public interest law community. These are all tremendous opportunities for our students to get downtown and have that experience, and also for our alums and other members of the legal community to get here at the law school. And you will meet them here very frequently for continuing legal education events, for our programs, and so forth. So location is important. The final facet of location is this spectacular new building. This is our 4th year in this building. You can see the natural light we have. That was intentional. It has elevated the mood of people in the building. It is a wonderful place to study. We've got incredible learning spaces. We've got a lot of spaces for skills training. We've got trial courtrooms. We've got research modules that house our clinical programs, that house our pro bono program, that house our research programs. And there is incredible, what I'll call, living space for students in the building. Study space that is diverse and it's open. You can have, carols where it's private. You can have soft seating. You can have tables where you collaborate with your students. We've got small study rooms. It's a great building. What I am particularly proud of is that we were the 2nd LEED Platinum law school building in the country. That's the highest standard for an environmentally sustainable building. We've got an 8th ranked in the country environmental law program, and we like to practice what we teach in building a sustainable building. So the 3rd reason, and the most important reason, is quality. And you all know that we are a top-ranked law school, and we've always been a top-ranked law school. But I want to get beyond, those numbers. People debate the validity of those numbers anyway. And what is really important to focus on is our commitment to student success. All of the things that we do to try to guarantee the success of our student body. So let me give you a few examples. Professor Roski is a graduate of that other small law school in New Haven, Connecticut, small but also good law school in New Haven, Connecticut. We were ranked 2nd only to Yale in the number of clinical opportunities we provide per student. So that's not a fuzzy ranking system. That's an objective measure of how many opportunities and diverse opportunities we provide our students to learn by doing, to learn while serving the community across a full range of different fields of law. We've been consistently ranked by National Jurist magazine as one of the top schools in the country for practical legal training. We've also consistently been ranked as among the best value law schools in the country. So if you want to think about it in terms of how much money you have to pay, how much debt you're going to have on graduation versus the quality of education, that's a very important factor. The most recent data show that we have the 13th lowest debt on graduation among the top 50 law schools in the country. So we're committed to doing everything possible to make your education affordable. And then there's all sorts of programs at the college in which we're ranked highly. A+ for environmental law, we're proud of that. As I said, 8th in the country, but also accolades in health law, in public interest law, in intellectual property law, in criminal law, other fields in which we excel. And that's all borne out by student achievements. So let me just give you a little bit of evidence about that. We teach lawyers to argue theory and law and evidence. Over the past 6 or 7 years, Our students have won about 15 awards in national competitions, competing against, the top law schools all over the country. Our students have earned the Best Brief Awards in the National Moot Court Competition, twice in the National Environmental Law Moot Court Competition, including this year, in the Energy Law Moot Court Competition, and the Constitutional Law Moot Court Competition. We were national champions in the bankruptcy law competition. And this year, again, they wrote what they call the best term sheet, which is the equivalent of the best brief in that competition. We were second in the country 2 years ago in the intellectual property law moot court competition. 2 years ago, we were in the final four of the energy law moot court competition, and they reached the quarterfinals again this year. So how is it that such a small student body law school competes so well against students from around the country? Well, one is the individualized education that I talked about earlier. A second is our truly superb first-year legal methods program, which Professor Anderson, again, will talk about later. 6 credits of very intensive training in how to think about the law, how to analyze the law, how to write effectively. All those best briefs came from somewhere, right? And that's part of it. Another piece of evidence is more anecdotal, but I find significant. As I travel around and talk to judges and practitioners around the country, very often, unsolicited, they'll come up to me and say, I had clerks from Harvard and Stanford in Utah last year. And the Utah clerk was as good or better as the clerks from those more elite law schools. In part, it's because how we train them. In part, it's because our students tend to have great spirit and great work ethic. It's a combination of intellect and personality, which is important. And I find it very telling that our students perform as well as the best law students around the country. Another piece of evidence is their success, student success, after graduation. And I know we're not here to talk about career development, but I have to say this. The class of 2018 had a 98% professional employment 10 months after graduation. That's the new statistic just a couple of weeks ago. That's remarkable on a national scale. But for the fact that one of the students is simply not seeking a job for personal reasons, it would be 99% professional employment 10 months out. And what our students achieve are really, really remarkable in terms of the range of things that our graduates do. I mean, who knew the University of Utah's graduates were General Counsel of Nike, General Counsel of Columbia Sportswear, General Counsel of American Airlines, Dell Computers, Intel right now. And on the public interest side, Executive Director of the National Center for Lesbian Rights. I don't think I got that acronym right, did I? It doesn't matter.
You did.
Okay. And Bono's international nonprofit RED, which works on AIDS advocacy in Africa and around the world. Our alumna, Deb Dugan in New York, is the executive director of that organization. The list goes on and on. So tremendous potential after you graduate this law school. So with that, those 3 kind of summary reasons, I want to introduce my 2 faculty colleagues. I'll introduce them both first, ask them to say a little bit more about themselves, and tell you a bit about their teaching philosophy in the areas in which they teach, and then we'll open it up for questions. So first, Professor Jency Anderson, who is a proud alumna of this law school. She practiced law for a number of years before coming here to teach in private practice and at the ACLU of Utah. She is a long member of our outstanding legal methods team, and therefore she's one of the faculty members with whom first-year students really get to spend a lot of time one-on-one. That's the core of that program. She has also been instrumental from the outset in the formulation and development of the Rocky Mountain Innocence Center and our Innocence Clinic here at the College of Law. She continues to serve as the legal director of RMIC. And I'll embarrass her. She has won awards throughout the community for that work. The Christine M. Durham Women Lawyer of the Year. Justice Christine Durham was a long-standing member of the Utah Supreme Court, first woman on the Supreme Court before she retired 2 years ago, a former Chief Justice of the court. Professor Anderson has won 3 awards from the Utah State Bar, their Pro Bono Initiative Award, their Pro Bono Lawyer of the Year Award, their Young Lawyer of the Year Award a few years ago, a couple of years ago, and the College of Law's Teaching Award. Following her, we have Professor Cliff Roski, who's a graduate of Amherst College, and I said that other small law school in New Haven, Connecticut. He teaches constitutional law, criminal law, sexuality in the law, and a new course, mindfulness in the law, which I hope he'll tell you a bit about, because we care about student wellness, and he's kind of at the point of the initiative to work more on that area. He also practiced law for a number of years, so has practical experience before he came here. And his scholarly expertise is in sexuality in the law, issues like marriage equality, anti-gay curriculum laws. He's written some extremely prominent award-winning articles in that area, but you'll see a theme here, also articles that have helped push the policy agenda. And he too has been active in the community here in Utah and around the country on legislative reform, on litigation, to try to protect people's rights. And like Professor Anderson, he has won awards for that. So the Champion of Equality Award by Equality Utah, the Equality Award from the Human Rights Campaign, and also both our early career faculty and faculty teaching awards. So both are devoted to our students and to our communities. And I think that cuts across our whole faculty. They're great examples, but they're just examples. And so I would encourage you to look on our faculty profiles on the website and see what the rest of our faculty does as well. With that, I will turn it over to Professor Anderson.
They're making me use one of these, even though I can be heard probably at the theater across the parking lot. I really feel like after that introduction, I just need to say, any questions? Dean Adler asked us to talk a little bit about why we went to law school, what our career paths have looked like, what our teaching philosophy is. I am, as he said, a graduate of this law school. I was here from 1990. I graduated in 1993 from this law school. I came to law school after having gotten a degree in theater performance and pursuing an acting career for a number of years in New York City. When he asked about my motivation to come to law school, it was really just so I could get a job and not be a waitress anymore. But really what I wanted to do was find a way to sort of make a difference in my community. I mean, I was one of those really idealistic students that said, I'm going to come to law school and I'm going to help people and I'm going to change the world. And this law school allowed me to sort of maintain that vision while I was in law school. A lot of law schools really push you toward sort of the one path, the big law firm, and that's the measure of success. And I think this law school, with its dedication to public interest, really allows you to develop whatever interest it is you have, whether it's going to the big law firm or working in a smaller boutique firm or specializing in bankruptcy or intellectual property law, or being a poor lawyer and doing public interest law down the line. So that said, I was also given the opportunity while I was here to explore some of those things to make sure that's what I wanted to do. So I worked at a large law firm, both my first summer and my second summer. I went to a different large law firm right when I got out of law school, so I did some big firm litigation. I then moved from there, as Dean Adler said, to the ACLU, where I was able to do civil rights law, but there I was also able to do policy work, and I was also able to do a lot of educational work. I moved from there to a small law firm where I did indigent criminal defense and disability rights law. And then I had the opportunity to come here and teach in the legal methods program. And the legal methods program is, I mean, it's legal writing, which is what it's called in a number of law schools, but we don't just teach you how to write. I mean, I am on the admissions committee, so I've read a lot of your files. You all can write. I don't need to teach you how to put a sentence together or a period at the end of the sentence. What I need to teach you is how to analyze and think about a legal problem, organize that, and then take it down out of your brain and down your arm and onto a piece of paper so that you can fully analyze a legal problem and you can convince a judge to rule in your favor. So I started in the legal methods program here 20 years ago next year. As he said, our legal methods program is pretty extraordinary, and that without sounding arrogant, which I probably already do, there are 3 of us currently who teach in the program, but we're committed to keeping the class size between 30 and 35, which is pretty extraordinary for this kind of program. I just got back from a conference in Las Vegas where I met with many of my colleagues in this field, and to hear them talking about teaching sections of 60 or having 3 sections of 30 each, to really, I couldn't imagine how you could teach it effectively with that number of students. And there has been right now we have 3 of us teaching it, but there's been a commitment that should the numbers in the law school go up at all, that we would try to keep it at that number. So I have this year I have 31 students who are with me all year long. They're from the beginning to the end. As Dean Adler said, it's a 6-credit fully graded class, 3 credits per semester. And not only, and I do, of course, classroom teaching, and we spend the required amount of time in the classroom, but I also meet with my students individually on a regular basis. I meet with all of them at least twice a semester to work on their papers on it so that we can really see where they are and individually work with them. And all of my colleagues do that as well in the legal methods program. But we also have real open door policies. So I'll meet with some students 10, 12, 15 times. And students often say to me, I'm sorry you have to do this. And it's like, it's why I do what I mean, I love the classroom component of it, and I love sort of that part. But what I really love is sitting with the individual students and mentoring them and helping them hit whatever their particular problem is in the legal methods. Because this is what lawyers do. They research and they write. They advocate, they analyze. And so I really want you, when you leave my class, to have a foundation in being able to do that. And that really is my theory of teaching, is I'm a practical-based teacher. I really want you to have the practical tools and skills that you need to move forward in your legal career. And there's a reason why law school is 3 years long. I mean, you can't learn it all in the first year, but I want you to have that foundation that you can then build on through the rest of your law school career. And I also, as Dean Adler said, practice law. I'm still a licensed member of the bar, and I work with the Rocky Mountain Innocence Center in litigating their cases. So I try to do what I teach every day. So I'm not just standing in front of you saying, here's how you write a brief. I say, I wrote a brief yesterday, and here's how I wrote it. So I really have that ability to mentor and to teach and to have that individualized relationship with my students. And just to give you an example of that, and so with that individualized relationship, I also get to have an idea of what their goals and their aspirations are. And because we are such a community-engaged faculty, I very often may have connections in the community where I can hook them up with someone, or I can at least get them to talk to somebody about something they're interested in, because I've been practicing law in this community for 20 years, 25 years. And so I have that. And recently I had a student who actually got an international fellowship in Geneva, and then is going to go work at a human rights organization in Galway, Ireland. And I happen to have a colleague who's currently in Galway, Ireland, and have set up a place for her to live while she's in her internship. But I couldn't do that at a bigger school. Like, I wouldn't have known in a bigger school where I can't have that personalized relationship with my students that she was going to go to Ireland this summer. But because she was my student and I was able to have that personalized relationship with her, I was able to help with that. In addition to that, I also, as Dean Adler said, run the Innocence Clinic program here through a nonprofit called the Rocky Mountain Innocence Center that I helped to found. What we do is we look at cases where individuals claim they're innocent of the crimes for which they've been convicted. We look at those cases in Utah, Wyoming, and Nevada. We're the only Innocence Project covering those 3 areas. It started at this university in 2000 with one of my former professors who asked me to become involved. And we're currently located in the law school, although we're an independent 501c3. The law school, and particularly Dean Adler, allowed us to move into the law school last year. So we're actually what's called now an in-house clinic. So our whole staff is in-house, and the students who work with us work in-house and are able to just come by our offices and work on their cases. It's a fully service learning opportunity. So I teach a class where we learn about innocence law from a completely practical point of view, and then the students actually work on cases of people who are claiming they're innocent of crimes, either through that we can show through DNA testing or other provable ways of showing innocence, like alibi evidence. Or we actually have a case where we found the actual perpetrator and we're able to bring our client home after 24 years. So not only do I get to mentor students in the legal methods program, I also get to mentor them in the innocence program. And that program is set up not just for those who want to do criminal law, but anybody who wants to talk to clients, because we interview all of our clients and we make sure the students interview all of our clients. We do field work and fact investigation. We do persuasive storytelling. We have students read trial transcripts and police reports, and so that you really get a full experience of doing what lawyers do that you can transfer into any area of law. And so that's a really, I think, exciting program, and the students who are involved in it have a great time, and it allows me not only to continue to mentor some of those students in their second and third year, but it allows me to also, the law school's been amazingly supportive of me and all the faculty in doing things that we have passion about and then teaching our students about it as well. So we're very lucky that way. I'm going to hand it over to Cliff, and then I'm happy to answer any questions when it's time. But I'm also willing, if you find me on the website and send me an email if you have questions about either the legal methods program or the innocence program or anything else, because I've been here for a long time and I also graduated from here. So, but thank you and welcome, and I'm very excited for all of you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cliff Roski, and Dean Adler asked us to talk about, as Jency said, why we went to law school. I wanted to go to law school as long as I can remember. I was a little kid, and in fact, I think it was in 6th grade, I defended the Pied Piper on a kidnapping charge, and I got him off. He walked, and I have been undefeated in court proceedings ever since, actually. I don't have a long record, but I always win. I just have been obsessed with it, mock trial in high school. And I just had a sense of a lot of sympathy for the underdog. I've always had a sort of a problem with authority and a talent for resisting authority and protecting people that are having trouble with authority. So I went to law school. I think in fact, even in undergrad, I majored I was at a liberal arts college, and I majored in basically the interdisciplinary study of law. So I was very focused on law throughout my education. And I went to law school with an eye toward teaching, but knowing that I also wanted to practice criminal defense law. And I did. I worked at 2 big firms in San Francisco, working on criminal defense cases, and also doing a lot of pro bono work, because most of the people who hire big firms are not exactly the underdog, right? But one of the wonderful things about the firms I worked at is they let me do really significant pro bono work, hundreds and hundreds of hours on cases. One of them involved an 18-year-old, a young man in high school in Georgia who was a straight A student and a star football player who had consensual sex with a sophomore when he was a senior, and because she was 3 weeks shy of her 16th birthday, he was charged with aggravated child molestation and in prison for 10 years. We were able to get that conviction overturned. Sort of fun fact about that case, he was African American and she was white, and the prosecutor was quite clearly upset about the relationship that they had. And so we brought that case to the Georgia Supreme Court and got the conviction overturned. And indeed, they then changed and clarified the law so that that wouldn't happen again in the state of Georgia. It was a real honor to be able to work on a case like that. And then at the second firm, I represented women from South Korea who had been smuggled into the United States on false promises, and then ended up working in massage parlors and were victims of sex trafficking, and helped them get visas, learn English, get jobs here in exchange for cooperating with prosecutors to help put away the people who smuggled them into the United States, the traffickers. So it felt very good to be able to work on those kinds of cases. And then after that, I joined, for 1 year, I joined a think tank at UCLA called the Williams Institute, which is the country's leading think tank on LGBT law, issues relating to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. And did some research, and then really jumped at the opportunity to join this law school. The opportunity to work, to research and practice in the area of LGBT rights in the state of Utah seemed unique, to say the least, and it has proved to be so. I've been doing this for 10 years now, and so just like Jency, I continue to practice. My principal client has been an organization called Equality Utah, which is the state's leading organization working to secure basic rights for LGBT Utahns and their families. Although just yesterday, I have a new client, Equality Arizona. I just filed a lawsuit against the state of Arizona to challenge the constitutionality of an anti-gay law in Arizona. It's been wonderful to practice in this area. And as the dean said, I file lawsuits. That's some of the things that I've done, but I also do a lot of legislative work. In particular, I've worked with the leadership of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to agree on basic protections for LGBT Utahns in employment, in housing, in education, anti-bullying laws. As you can imagine, it's challenging to get on the same page with an organization that's a religiously conservative organization in one of the state's most, or country's most Republican states, to get the church and the legislature and the governor and Equality Utah all on the same page with respect to every detail on LGBT rights. But I love that challenge. It's been a wonderful experience. I love both the challenge and the goal of finding common ground. Saying, well, of course, everyone doesn't agree on everything, but there are many things that we all do agree on, and we can agree on those today and make progress. And so that's been a wonderful experience on the practical side. I teach criminal law because I practice that, and also because it's the first year class, and I absolutely love the opportunity to interact with you all. When Dean Adler was talking about all of the wonderful things that we do to help you succeed in the world, one thing he left out. One of the reasons that we're so successful is that we're picky, and you're fantastic, right? If we're picky and we bring in fantastic students like you, it becomes, of course, easier to help you succeed in the world, and it's our pleasure to do that. And so I teach criminal law, I teach a class constitutional law, I teach only the most controversial subjects, right? Criminal law, so, I mean, crimes like murder and rape, really difficult personal things. In constitutional law, I teach free speech, laws that discriminate based on race and sex, issues of hate speech, abortion, gay rights, really all the controversial stuff. And for a long time, I taught a class called Sexuality and Law, which was, it sort of talked about all of the different issues regarding sex discrimination, discrimination against women and LGBT people. But I started to notice, particularly after gay marriage was legal in all 50 states, the numbers in the class, they didn't disappear, but they started to go down. And I, as an attorney, as a law professor, have, like many people, struggled with my own personal well-being and explored ways that I can maintain my physical health, my mental health, while doing high-quality work and doing as much of that work as I can, helping as many people as I can. And so one of the things that I've been doing is meditating, engaging with what's known as mindfulness practice. It's a secular form of meditation, and it's been very helpful to me, and I've seen it help many other people. And so I started pursuing, right this year, I'm enrolled in a class at UCLA to become certified as a mindfulness teacher, right, a professional mindfulness teacher. And I just was curious, and I asked students. I literally took a poll of 1L and 2Ls at the end of the year. What would you rather have me teach, a class on LGBT rights or a new class called Mindful Lawyering, in which I teach people how to meditate and what the relationship is between the practice of mindfulness and the practice of law. There's a landslide for mindful lawyering. And so it's a pilot class that I've done this year with 15 students. It has been the most successful teaching experience of my life, and I feel like I've had lots of great teaching experiences. The students are eating it up. They want more of it. We've established a meditation room in the law school on the second floor, and the student, I donated the cushion. There's yoga mats in there. We just request a lock on the door because people are sometimes opening the door while people are meditating, which is not great. And so it's been really wonderful. And that's led to a broader focus on the well-being of students in the law school. And so we've been having some incredible conversations in the class. Next year, the class will be open enrollment and pass-fail because it's for your well-being. And so as many people who want to take it should be able to take it. I'm pretty confident that it's going to end up being adopted permanently in the curriculum and also expanded on. I'm talking to we have another professor who's a certified yoga teacher. We actually have many students who are certified yoga teachers. We have a beautiful space in the moot court room right down the hall. Why not have free yoga classes in the building? I know, I haven't been authorized to say this, but it's true that Dean Adler is working hard to secure a mental health therapist on site at the law school. Why are we doing this? Because law school is challenging. It is. It's very difficult. And so we want to make sure that you're supported as much as possible, and that early in even before your career begins, you establish good habits to establish balance and well-being in your life that you can take with you. We are, I think, on the cutting edge among law schools in this regard. We're also, though, supported by the bar. The Utah Bar Commission has just created a well-being committee. I've just been asked to join that committee to represent law schools. This is a push that's needed throughout the practice of law. Lawyers work very hard and get stressed out, and so we need to attend more to our physical and mental health. And as someone who doesn't teach in legal methods, I've paid attention to who are the best teachers in the building. Well, the best teachers in the building are the legal methods professors, and so I have started to imitate all of the wonderful things that Jency and her colleagues do with you in the first year. So for example, I give a practice exam and I say to my students, it's optional, it's not mandatory, but you can do as many drafts of your practice exam as you want, and every time you do one, you send it to me, come to my office, we go word by word through it. You do your very best work, and whatever that work looks like, I don't care, we're gonna make it better until it's fantastic, and there's nothing I can do for you, and you can move on to other great things. Some students don't feel like they need this. I've had students come to my office a dozen times in a semester. I've seen students completely transform their performance. And I really try to design the classroom experience, the practice exams, to help you pass the bar, to help you practice law. These are not sort of mind games that I play with my students, but actually, this is what I need to do when I practice law, when I write something. Those are the kind of questions I ask, the kind of tips I give. And so it's been a really rewarding experience. That, of course, leads to conversations about careers, which are among my favorite conversations. The opportunity to mentor students is wonderful. I love to find students jobs. I'm very aggressive about doing it. It's a lot of fun to do. It's very gratifying for both of us. And so I love being at a public law school and a small law school, and a law school, as the dean said, that is, you can work for the city, or the county, or the state right here. That's a unique opportunity as an attorney, in addition to all the big firms and all the other opportunities. So I think I'll wrap up there so we can get to questions.
So apparently none of you have questions other than for our career development office. And even that was just one. But I can only imagine that there are questions brewing in the back of your minds for our faculty members. So if you can take a little bit of time and just submit some questions to our faculty, or call them up, because we're recording and we can't
I
hear
can
them.
repeat the question.
Okay, that works as well. So if you guys want to just start blurting out your questions, and our faculty members can address those inquiries for you.
I heard something about the 8th ranked environmental law program. What distinguishes John Hopkins as a or a top or environmental law?
Thank you. The question was, we're an 8th ranked environmental law program. Why? What distinguishes us from other programs? I said 8th, you could call it 5th. There's a bunch of schools that are tied in the 5th spot, so they call it an 8th, but it's really 5th. In any event, we have a tremendous faculty. We've got a very large percentage of the faculty who have practiced environmental law like I have, or natural resources law, or water law, and who study it, who teach it, who write about it. A number of people who do it around the country, practicing like our other faculty members said. We also all teach in the regular, in the other parts of the curriculum, which means that we're very integrated throughout the law school, and I think that's part of the success of the environmental law program. It's not a silo. We have a program called the Wallace Stegner Center for Land Resources and the Environment, which is the umbrella program. It's been in existence 24 years, formed a year after I got here, which sponsors an annual symposium, which brings speakers from all over the country and the world. The Stegner Symposium that we had last week had former Interior Secretary Sally Jewell speak and give actually 2 talks. That's just one of many examples of who we bring to the building. There's a very rich series of green bag programs where we bring speakers from around the community. Our curriculum is very broad in the field, so not just traditional environmental law, but energy law and natural resources law and water law, ocean and coastal law. We've got very practice-oriented courses, an environmental practice course where you learn to do it. We've got an environmental clinic. We've got an environmental crimes course. So it's really just the breadth of attention. And I won't speak for myself, but the quality of my colleagues in the field is remarkable. Yes.
I was just curious, it seems like in professional settings, in tech and whatnot, there's been this move towards being more aware of employees' health and wellness as they're, what are you seeing in the field of law, specifically in the state of Utah, as far as firms and their focus on that or lack thereof?
So I think it was 2 years ago now, the American Bar Association formed a task force and issued a report on well-being, lawyer well-being, they called it, although it included judges, it included law students. And it's this long report with very specific and really wonderful recommendations. When you get the leading minds in the legal profession on a problem, you come up with really good ideas. Some of them quite ambitious and really wonderful. And that led to all of the state bar commissions forming well-being committees. That just doesn't, forming a committee, who cares? Well, who's the chair of that committee? A sitting Supreme Court justice on the Utah Supreme Court. The president of the bar is the co-chair. These are very serious committees. Basically, they're replicating at the state level what you see at the national level. And they're just winding down phase one of their work. And phase one includes going to some of the biggest law firms in Utah where they have connections and leverage and saying, you're going to form a well-being committee. That's what you're going to do. And then you're going to sign up for this well-being challenge that we have, where you reward lawyers for doing not pro bono work, because that's already part of the culture, but going to a soup kitchen, right? Or doing yoga, or exercising, or meditating, or however you define well-being. So it's an important push, but it's really just getting started right now. It's really, one of the nice things about having a small law school is it's really up to us how we do this, and it can happen very rapidly. I asked the students if they wanted a course. They said yes. Next thing you know, we have a course. In the course, it becomes clear that one of the assignments for these students who volunteered for the course was to meditate every day. And some of them said, I have little kids. Well, I have little kids too. I can't meditate at home in the morning. People are screaming at me when I'm trying to serve breakfast, right? And so they said, we need a place to meditate. I was thinking, oh yeah, I have an office. Where are you going to meditate? Create a room, right? And then I'm looking through the law school recommendations that on-site therapist. I reach out to the dean of students, and she says, we're already on that. We're already working toward that. So it's a cutting-edge trend across the country. Like most cutting-edge trends, you'll see the biggest law firms, well, they can just hire a therapist full-time in the building. Of course, frankly, the biggest law firms need that. And so that's, because that's how they're generating all that money to pay that therapist, right? One of the nice things about practice in Utah is it is just far more balanced than practice in New York. There's just no question about that. And so, I think it's a work in progress, but there's a lot of momentum behind it. To give you a sense of the enthusiasm for the subject, this class with 15 spots, it booked up in less than 1 minute. The wait list was longer than there were more than 15 people on the wait list. There was a real sort of frenzy whenever someone dropped the class to fill the spot. In addition, just in terms of the visitors to the class, I reached out to some of the people who are really experts in this field. Justice Paige Peterson of the Utah Supreme Court, she wanted to take my class. I said, well, you can come, but she's the chair of the Wellbeing Commission. I said, but we're gonna learn something from you too, right? Another person who's very excited to join us, former Chief Justice of the Utah Supreme Court, Michael Zimmerman. He's also an ordained Zen master. Literally, he has his own Zen temple, essentially. So he's an expert meditator and an expert lawyer, and founded the only appeals firm in the state of Utah, or the first boutique appeals firm. So he's coming. His wife is founded the Office of Dispute Resolutions of the Courts at Utah, and also is an internationally acclaimed meditation teacher, and also an ordained Zen master. She's come. And we did a whole thing on mediation, which is like a sort of arbitration. It's like a friendly way to resolve a lawsuit, mediation and meditation. And we did a practice of that. So, and then I had a few more people that wanted to come to the class. There was just not room, so there's a lot of enthusiasm for this subject, which probably tells you a little bit more than you wanted to know about the practice of law, but it's good that we're paying attention to this issue. Sure.
Okay, and we do have some questions here. So if I can field some of these questions, if that's okay.
Let's do one and then
Okay.
go back to the field and go back
Sure.
and forth. Okay.
So this, apparently, the question really is if we've made any efforts to be diverse and inclusive, to not only understand liberal ideals, but also conservative perspective.
So that's a great question. And obviously, it's a national question, a national dialogue that's going on about the diversity of ideas in education, higher education generally. You probably know that President Trump just signed an executive order on free speech on college campuses. President Watkins is almost always ahead of the curve, right ahead of the curve, and the university promulgated on its website our philosophy, our statement about diversity of ideas. My personal philosophy is that we're all free to disagree on a wide range of issues, and the best way to, if you disagree with someone's ideas, is to fight them with your own ideas, speech versus speech, rather than speech versus censorship or anything like that. So here at the law school, we've got a diversity of student organizations. We've got a very active chapter of the Federalist Society, which is a group of more conservative law students with a different set of ideas. One of the great things about this law school is that the Federalist Society will have jointly sponsored student events with the Pride Law Caucus, with the Public Interest Law Caucus, to sponsor panels in which people discuss ideas from different parts of the political spectrum. And that, in addition to being the right thing to do in terms of how we ought to run a civil society in which we can openly debate ideas, is great for the students, right? It's great to teach them, and you will all become better lawyers if you can understand, embrace, figure out the strengths and weaknesses of all ideas. That's what lawyers do. So I think it's important at multiple levels in legal education. Yeah.
When I was being interviewed here, one of the wonderful things we do is we have a student committee to interview candidates to be hired. And I'll never forget this. It was quite a group of students. And before my butt hit the seat, someone fired the first question at me. They said, "Why Utah?" And I had not had a lot of time to consider that, frankly, at that point. I was sort of trying to get a job, you know. And I thought very quickly and said, ideological diversity. And then it was very interesting. I mean, if you think about the subject area that I specialize in, LGBT rights, I said ideological diversity. And one of them said, "Oh, what do you mean, because we're all Mormon?" And I was new to Utah. I didn't even know if you were supposed to call people Mormon or that you were supposed to say Latter-day Saints or what, you know. And so, and then someone said, "Well, I'm Mormon and I support gay rights. I even support gay marriage." And another student said, "Yeah, Alex, but that's because you're weird." And then someone else said, "Well, I'm Mormon and I support gay rights and I'm not weird." And I said, "This is what Utah. This conversation that we just had in the last minute is unlike any other conversation happening in any law school, because they're almost all most of them are all liberal law schools, and then there's a handful of conservative law schools, but there's no law school like this. We have a true ideological mix in our student body, in our faculty. We have Paul Cassell is one of the leading conservative voices in the nation, advocating for victims' rights. He also advocated for the death penalty. Very prominent conservative voice. And so both on the faculty and in the student body, I think this is an important value. It's also, when I used to teach that LGBT rights class, I would always try to get at least one very smart, very conservative student in that classroom to enrich the discussion. Because when that student isn't there, I just do it, right? If everyone in the class is liberal, I'm going to be Justice Scalia all semester long, and have a lot of fun doing it. He was a brilliant man. And so, but it's much more fun when that can happen organically between students rather than the professor always having to play one side.
Well, and I have a similar experience in my innocence clinic, which really doesn't, I mean, it really can't be called a liberal, I mean, nobody thinks innocent people should be in prison. But in my innocence clinic, I usually have a majority of people who want to be prosecutors, not who want to be defense attorneys. So that there's a real voice for when we look at the cases and whether there's really a claim of innocence and what may have gone wrong, that we really have that voice of the prosecutor there. And we work in criminal justice reform issues as well, and we have worked closely with the legislature and Republican lawmakers in passing innocence legislation. Here, we've also done it in Wyoming and in Nevada, and it's required us to work in all three of those states, which were all red. Nevada recently went a little more blue. But to really work and find, again, that mix of what we all can agree on and how we can sort of effectuate reform so that everybody's happy with it. So I think, I was actually thinking about that. I mean, I think it seemed like you had sort of this panel of do-gooders or liberals. But I think, as we all have said, that is one of the things that this law school offers, is that a much more broader focus.
Scott, I think you had a question? Yeah.
I know we're out of time. Quick, can you maybe touch on the collaborations with other colleges on campus?
Sure, that's a good question too. Also because President Watkins has the 1U philosophy to get out of our silos. I'm sorry. What do we do in terms of collaboration in other colleges or with other colleges around campus? So we have, in addition to the Stegner Center, we've got 2 other cross-campus centers, the Center for Law and Biomedical Sciences, the Utah Criminal Justice Center. All 3 of those centers engage in interdisciplinary research and teaching collaborations around campus. The Stegner Center has worked with the College of Engineering, with the College of Sciences on environmental policy issues, joint research projects, joint teaching projects. The Labs Center, Law and Biomedical Sciences, has, we've had Professor Tennille Brown and Professor Leslie Francis teach law to medical students. They also are part of research collaborations in terms of high-tech biotechnology. Amelia Reinhardt, Dean Reinhardt, is part of the Bench to Bedside program, in which our law students work with medical students and other science students, graduate students around campus who have been inventing new medical technologies, and how do you then commercialize them? How do you get the intellectual property rights protected? How do you license them? How do you incorporate? So direct collaborations between law students and medical and biomedical students around campus. The Criminal Justice Center, we've worked with the College of Social Work on broad-scale criminal justice research in the state of Utah and beyond. A few examples, but there's many more done by individual faculty. The other thing I'll say about that is that if you have particular interests, again, because we're small, we can find a way for you to pursue it. We can find other people on campus that you can work with. If we don't have an existing clinical program in an area that involves other people on campus or in the community, we can help you arrange that. So we do think broadly in that regard. Thanks for that question.
Okay, and I think we're gonna stop right there. And I just did want to let you know, we'll just be back at about 9:45 on your clocks, because I know this one's a little bit ahead. And if you have to take a restroom break, you can just exit this door right here, and they'll be off to just at the end of the hall. So we'll see you back in about 10 minutes.